all our evidence is across a few different verticals and businesses, focus on the Apple user because they're the ones who are going to pay the bills.
Hey, podcast listener, you're about to discover insider tips, tricks, and secrets to making more sales and converting more prospects into customers with email marketing. For more information about the Email Marketing Podcast or the Autoresponder Guide, go to dropdeadcopy.com/podcast. Yeah, it's Johnny McIntyre here, the Autoresponder Guy, and it's time for episode 48 of the McMethod Email Marketing Podcast, where you'll discover tactics and strategies to increase your email profits by 25 to 100% in 90 days or less without spending more on advertising. Today, I'll be talking to James Kemp. James Kemp is a subscriber to the McMethod Daily Email Tips newsletter, which you can sign up to at themcmethod.com. He's a subscriber, and I sent out an email about a month ago saying I was looking for some more interesting people to interview, specifically people that were sending a large volume of emails per month. And James fits the bill. He runs the email marketing department at Grab One, which is the biggest daily deals website in New Zealand. They did $130 million in sales in 2013, and they're sending about 35 million emails a month. So in this episode, what I wanted to bring him on for was to find out what sort of challenges companies like Grab One, people who are sending a huge amount of emails every month, what sort of challenges they run into, and if there's anything we, as probably small to medium businesses, can learn from them to apply to our own. If there's anything radically different to what they're doing, or if it's all just the same thing, and there's just, I guess, a great reminder that we're doing what we should be doing. Okay, so this is a very interesting episode. It's a bit different, but it's also, you'll be surprised to see that a lot of what James has to say, you can apply right now to your own business. To get the show notes for this episode of the Email Marketing Podcast, go to themcmethod.com/48. As always, if you want to leave an iTunes review, I love them. You make my day. You make me smile. Go to iTunes, go to the store and search for the McMethod Email Marketing Podcast. You'll be able to leave a review right there, and I will read it out on the show. Now I have one listener question before we get into this interview. Question is, what do I say in my emails? So this is obviously from someone who's not really sure what to say. And I hear this a lot. A lot of people, they're like, well, I get it, John. Email marketing is great. It's valuable. I want to do it, but I just don't know what to say. How the hell can I write 20 emails, 50 emails and not run out of things to say? Well, this is the really interesting thing is if you can figure this out, if you could figure out something to say every day or for 50 emails or for the next 6 months or for the next year or whatever, you're going to be the natural leader in your industry because only the best would always have something interesting and useful to say. So that's just to frame up the benefits of this. If you can solve this problem, if you can figure out what to say so that you never actually run out of things to say, you'll be the natural leader in your industry because everyone else is thinking the way you're thinking right now, which is, I just don't know what to say, John. I can't do it. It's too hard. I've got writer's block. I'm insecure. I'm blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's just to get you a little bit excited about if you can figure this out, this is what you can expect. This has happened with me. I found that just by sending daily emails with the McMethod Daily Email Newsletter, people come to me. People really see me as a leader in this email marketing industry. It's enabled me, I think, to become a leader much faster than would have happened otherwise because I'm always tuning in. I'm constantly staying top of mind with my subscribers. I send emails far more often than a lot of people in this industry. So it's just great. I love it. And I bet you what you're wondering now is, well, just how do I do it, John? Stop talking about the benefits. Tell me how to do it. And the secret is really just stories. Be entertaining, right? If you have to share how-to tips every day, you're going to run out of things to say, and your subscribers are going to get bored off their asses because no one wants to hear, from an encyclopedia every single day. People want to be entertained. I think I've mentioned that quote before. It's from Oscar Wilde, I think it is, where most people live lives of quiet desperation. This is something to keep in mind when you're doing your email marketing. If you can tune in and say something funny or hilarious and find a way to tie it into email marketing or whatever your niche is, right? You're going to make their day. You're going to make them smile. You're going to make them laugh, and you're going to be relevant. You're going to be confident. You're going to get their attention. You're staying top of mind, like I said. It gives you an opportunity to make an offer to say, if you want some help with this, come and pay. Click this buy now button, reply to this email, whatever. So when I say stories, this could be like an actual story about like a once upon a time so-and-so did this, whatever. Or it could be just go on a rant. Go, all right, so today I was eating, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm drinking I got 6 raw eggs, some spinach, some blueberries, and some water. It's my smoothie. And you know what I was thinking while I was drinking this is so weird. When I tell most people about this, they think I'm a complete weirdo. But there's a very good reason I do this, okay? Same goes for email marketing, right? Sending daily emails, being aggressive, being weird and wonderful, and occasionally swearing and doing all this stuff like that. People think you're weird, but there is a very good reason that I do this, and some very smart other people, some very smart email marketers do it as well. Okay, so I mean, you can pick anything. I love doing this. I love playing this game. You could pick a chair and talk about this chair right here. And like I said, this is no joke. I have a chair right next to me. It's white. There's a white top and a white sit down. It's one of those kind of like picnic chairs that you would take to the park or the beach. And while I was looking at this chair, I got to thinking about craftsmanship, more about just technology and the forward progress of humanity. And really, this chair came from, it looks very simple, looks very, provides somewhere for someone to sit, but it's actually quite a technological marvel. And this came from a lot of innovation and evolution, you might say, where chairs started off very simple, where they were made out of wood, but this is a metal chair that folds up into a kind of a flat folding chair, so you can put it behind a wardrobe. Okay, and chairs started off very simple, very wooden, but they turned into something that's actually quite advanced in the sense that this is quite a functional chair. You can sit on it, but you can also fold it up, chuck it in the car, chuck it behind a wardrobe, something like that. And this is a lot like email marketing. Back in the day when people got started, it was all about just sending emails. It was very unsophisticated. But what's happened is over time, as we've all got more experience about what works, we've improved the strategies. Okay, we've learned what works, what doesn't. And that's what you're going to learn inside McMaster's, my private community for people who want to master the art of email marketing. Okay, so you see what I did there? I picked something completely random like a chair and tried to turn it into a pitch for McMaster's, which is my private community. Okay, now that's a very quick random example, but this is what you need to do with your emails. This is what allows me to always have something to say, because I can pick anything and have something to say about it and find a way to link it to email marketing. In a recent interview with Michael Silk on how he writes emails for an 8-figure company, he talks about going to the weird news section of a newspaper. Every newspaper has one of this, and you just pick a random news story, write it in the email. It's going to be weird, like the goat that was arrested for armed robbery. That's one of his emails that he sent out, and then find a way to link it into your product. And when you get good at this, once you develop it, it does take practice. You will learn actually how to do this in McMaster's with stories that sell. That's a product that, one of the training programs in there that teaches you how to tell stories that do this. But anyway, once you get good at this, you can convert any idea into a pitch for your product. And this is what really allows you to never run out of something to say. Okay, that's what you say in your emails. That's it for now. Let's get into this interview with James Kemp. It's John McIntyre here, the autoresponder guy. I'm here with James Kemp. James is a subscriber on the McMethod daily email list, and he got in touch with me after I sent out an email saying I was looking for people who send a large volume of emails. And James sends 35 million emails a month, which is over 1 million a day. So there are some very specific issues that he's going through that people who are sending less emails aren't. And it's I think some really interesting takeaways that we'll get into in just a minute. So I'll let James explain all of that. James, how are you going today?
I'm great. How you doing?
Fantastic, man.
Good.
All right, let's before we get into the specific issues, tell people a bit about what you do, what you're working on, and why you're sending so many emails.
Yeah, so GrabOne started as a daily deal site in New Zealand about 3 years ago. So number one daily deal site, off the back of the success of big companies like Groupon, GrabOne carved out its own little local niche in the New Zealand market. So we've got about just over 1 million daily subscribers, and then we send about 1 million emails a day. So that covers, everything from, travel and product all the way through to, local experiences. So, our partners, we've got about 15,000 businesses we work for, and we market anything from, a pedicure all the way through to a cruise in Alaska. So it's a business that started as daily deals, but increasingly, we're an e-commerce store for anything and everything you want to see, eat, and do.
Okay. Let's talk about that real quick. Just email specifically. You said a minute ago, before I hit record, that email is the engine that drives the whole thing. Can you explain a bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're throwing up about 150 offers a day. And, when you've built a brand and something that's as iconic as us in the New Zealand market with 80% of the market share, people are waking up and seeing what there is to do, whether it's a restaurant offer or a beauty offer or a holiday. We're very much connecting people and inspiring them to do something locally. So email is for us, the quickest way to get that message out there, and also the most economic. So it's broadly 2/3 of our business, sending an email out, putting something in front of someone that's relevant, and relevance is, what city do I live in, and what's around me and what's local, and it's the cheapest, fastest, and easiest channel to do that.
Okay. I think what's interesting here is that, like, Grab One, we're talking like a massive company at a massive scale here. Some people might think that email marketing is for, internet marketers and small-time people. But, I mean, there's companies like yours. There's, I read recently about a company called Daily Candy, and they sold basically a glorified email newsletter for different cities in the States with, I don't think it was deals. I think it was more like restaurants and cool stuff to check out, fashion, that sort of thing. And that sold for $125 million. And it's basically like an email newsletter with, content rolled into it as well, which I just found incredible. And now I'm just seeing these companies pop up all over the place. So I think that's the first very interesting thing. And the second is you guys are doing daily email. So everyone's, a lot of people saying daily email is way too aggressive, whereas, you say the complete opposite.
Aggressive? I mean, we make 30 offers in every email we make. We're if you want to sell something, you've got to make an offer, don't you?
Right.
So, we're putting it out there and we're making sure we're sending the right email to the right people. We've got algorithms which say, what's your propensity to buy in certain categories based on behavior that you've exhibited before. And we're also showing people what other people are buying, and introducing those social proof elements. How many have we sold? What's selling fast in your city? But, email, you can't really beat it in terms of getting something in front of people. And coupons have been around for a long time, and I think the daily deals model and also e-commerce as a whole met that apex at the time that said, okay, coupons work. People like a bit of discount and a deal and value, and now we've got a method to put it in front of them, frequently and easily and cheaply, and they can access it anywhere, especially, with mobile and those kind of things accelerating. You can get it anywhere, you can consume it, you can purchase it. So right. It's the method.
I'm curious, how does this compare to social media for a daily deal site like yours?
So in terms of revenue, social media is about 1% of what we do, which is when you're a $100 million plus company, it's a big number, but it's still 1%.
And then email you said was 80%?
We're about 2/3 in attribution or direct attribution, so it's how we get out there. It's the engine. If email goes wrong, which it occasionally does when you're sending the volume that we are, you really notice it.
Okay, interesting. So I think that's a cool thing to bring out. Is a lot of people go on about social media these days, and another one is content marketing. And I think the proof is in the pudding right here. It's email all the way.
Yeah, we introduce content into email when it's appropriate, but that nothing can beat making an offer to someone. So if you're sending email, make an offer.
Okay. So let's get into some of there are going to be some major challenges that that a guy like you's going through compared to, say, a guy with 100 people on his list. So let's talk about some of that stuff. What sort of challenges are you facing on a daily basis when you're sending that kind of volume?
I think when you're at big volume and when you're hitting people frequently, fatigue is a big factor. So for us, it's been giving our people who are consuming our emails options about how and when they consume them. So, for example, by default, we send people 2 emails a day based on where they are. But, the minimum that you get when you originally sign up is 2 emails a day. So that the content is different in both of them. But, about 12 months ago, we introduced a project to give people an option to receive 1 email a day. And that was a logical step to, churn mitigation. The last mile is always unsubscribing. And that's been really successful in giving a personalized solution to those people so personalized both in the way they consume it, but also in the content of it, because it's personalized to the individual, which is an algorithm that we've built in-house. I think one of the biggest challenges is when you're sending over 1 million emails a day is stepping outside the boundaries of the people who control who sees the email. So our friends at Google and our friends at Yahoo and etc. When you're sending that volume of email, if you send more, they don't get there because they say, well, you're already sending 1 million. Do you really need to send that many more? So you have to operate in a fairly narrow channel of when you're at volume and scale, you need to make sure you're keeping consistent with that. I think also in terms of personalization, that's the massive thing, as I mentioned, in terms of how many emails people are getting every day, but also in terms of the content. The more you can get the user to put their hand up about what kind of content they're going to see it, the more credibility you've got in their inbox. Okay. So I think when you're at scale, when you're looking at such a big number, 1 million is you forget that there's an individual user on the end. So focusing on making sure that the big numbers get there, but making sure they're relevant to an individual user is a constant challenge, because even if you segment them down into groups, your top 10% of purchases are still a big group. So you got to keep focusing on that individual.
Right. Okay. I think that's really cool, that relevance, at any level, relevance when you're small, when you're big, that seems to be the biggest thing. So what you're trying to do is just work out, rather than doing it manually, which is what someone in a smaller situation might do, you have to create these algorithms. It's like kind of like Google's algorithm.
Yeah.
Figures out what to send to who.
Yeah, and for a small business, they create the relevancy because they know that they have a better relationship with the audience. They can afford to build a closer bond with those people because there's a smaller number of them. For us, that job's done by maths, but for a small business, I think it's a classic know your audience and know you're sending to and respond to their wants and the way that they want to be communicated via email.
Right. Okay. So, and then you're sending 2 emails a day. You find that works for most people?
Yeah, definitely. If it's the context of how people receive things nowadays. For us, we've created a habit of people checking an email between 6:30 and 8 o'clock in the morning on the commute. Increasing those people are checking it via a mobile phone.
Okay.
And then potentially following up with some of that content to reinforce the things you really want them to see, but also varying some other content within the second email around that kind of late morning period when they're starting to think about lunchtime, or they're starting to wind down and they've got a bit more personal time at work. We're very cyclical, so our Monday to Friday is the beast that feeds us. When people are at work and commuting and they've got access to these devices and they want to switch off from whatever they're doing when they're in the office, those mobile devices have made it easier for people to check these kind of things. So making sure that messaging is consistent between the 2 daily emails and getting them back to the site where that purchasing is spiking around early morning, and then you see another spike around lunchtime, and then increasingly in the evening with mobile and tablet devices, a lot of people are sitting in front of the TV and having a bit of a browse or rechecking the email they saw earlier in the morning and flicking between the content of the two and then purchasing between kind of 6:30 and 8:30 p.m. So if you're in an e-commerce business, you got to try and think about that immediate conversion off those devices and when are they likely to be looking at it and on what device,
right.
and when are they going to have the time to make that purchasing decision and who's involved in it. Higher value stuff tends to sell in the evenings,
okay.
with the more impulse stuff tending to sell quickly in the mornings because it's a snap decision which is easier to make on a mobile or a tablet or a desktop.
Right. But if you're buying that holiday to Bali or something, you're going to have to think about it at least for a day.
Yeah. You know what us blokes are like. We're not the only decision maker as well in the house, so you usually got to ask for permission, don't you?
Absolutely. So one thing I found interesting there is you timing emails based on when you think people are going to be checking them, which they're on the train to work. There, I mean, if you knew when everyone was on the toilet, which unfortunately that's probably a random during the day, but that'd be another great time, I imagine.
Yeah, I haven't gone that much in depth into our purchasing behavior, but we've found some really interesting stuff. So adult products, funnily enough, have a higher open rate on mobile, and it's pretty obvious why. You want a bit of privacy.
Yeah.
So you got to think about what your product type and what is the likely behavior you're going to initiate with people, and when and where and how are they going to access it. So if your product type's something a bit sensitive, then mobile is probably going to be it. But if it's something such as a holiday or a high value transaction, what other decision makers are involved in that, and what information do you need to get that conversion down the funnel? What information do you need in your email, and what information do you need on your site to sell something?
Okay. Now I want to step back to deliverability for a second. When you're at that level, deliverability is a huge issue of whether you can get that email into the inbox. What are some of the, what are some of the most surprising things you've learned about how to get good deliverability?
Pay someone to do it. So, we spend a lot of money on email when the ROI we get it on it is about 78 times what we spend on it. When you're at volume, you're walking the tightrope of subject lines. Make sure you're not including stuff that might get you on a blacklist or spammed, both from an algorithm point of view and from the email providers such as pharmacy or some of the drug products and things like that. Make sure that you're probably changing it up as well. So consistency in terms of the time and the messaging and the branding. John, you tag your emails with who they're from at the beginning in little brackets, and that creates that recognition that it's from a trusted source.
Yeah.
But after a while, fatigue may set in. You change up your subject lines. You can put icons in them. You can put little things in there that make sure that people are opening them and not necessarily spamming them. Because if people start to spam your email, you may think it's getting there, but it may not be. So make sure you're consistent, but you're changing it up to keep the audience interested.
Okay. So some of the tech stuff, because I said to you earlier that someone had asked me about SPF records and all the tech stuff, which I have no idea about, but there's a lot of tech stuff that goes into when you send an email, such as, I think it's like in the headers, the IP address, the SPF stuff. You're saying instead of worrying about all that stuff, just pay someone, whether it's, $500,000 or $1 million a year, like whatever you have to pay them to do it. And then you can just focus on doing the simple stuff.
Yeah. I think that applies at any level. I think you focus on your audience and the message you want to serve them, and you get other people to make sure it gets there. Email's a channel, Facebook's a channel. We pay Facebook to make sure people see our messages, but we focus on the message, and to us, email is no different. You focus on the message and the audience, and make sure someone else gets it there.
Okay. So a lot of the interesting thing about deliverability I found is that mostly it just amounts to sending stuff that people actually want to read. Like there's all these other hacks, and you can pay these companies and use these little things, putting icons in the subject line. But at the end of the day, you have to be sending stuff that people want to read, or your deliverability is just going to go down. Yeah,
and it's all about engagement. Open rate and things like that are really vanity metrics. You can pat yourself on the back about a high open rate, but if no one clicked on the contents of it, then all you had was a clever subject line and you hit someone at the right time. So you got to measure the right stuff, but it's all about the user or the customer or the prospect and how they want to interact with it. We've done stuff on the fly as well. Think about the context of what people are consuming your product in. It was raining in Auckland, which it often does one day, and we've got the ability to pull together a page that says a load of product from the site that pertains that it's a rainy day. Your raincoats and your umbrellas and things like that. And then we sent them an email saying, it's raining outside, because it was. And, your open rates are high, and subsequently your engagement is high because you've sent a relevant email in the context of what's happening right outside the window.
Right.
So you're making that little bit of extra effort to connect with those people based on the context of what they are. Not everyone's got the ability to do that, but if you know the location of where your users are, and, you maybe know something's happening in the general area, or there's a major event around it, use it. You're giving people context for what they're doing, and they're more likely to open your email than the other 10 that are sitting in their inbox at the same time.
Right, the rest of them, they're not as relevant as saying it's raining right now outside.
You're reading their mind, aren't you?
How does he know that?
I know it's raining. Yeah. It's just that other layer that other people don't have that you can add on to the context, and you're going to be the one who cuts through the inbox.
Right. Okay. And what about mobile, email design? Are you sending? And then related to this is all HTML versus text email. What are you finding? Because you'd have the data to back this up. What's working for you in terms of email design, email template design, and then also when you send emails to mobile phones? Yeah.
So mobile is very much be careful what you change if you're already sending something, but also focus on the imagery with mobile. For our site, the mobile traffic on the site, mobile users on average visit twice as many pages as desktop users. Hypothesis or anecdotally say, the scroll is a factor, and it's a lot easier to click and browse with your thumb. But with mobile email, the visuals on a small screen size are far more important. And if you're not sending responsive emails or things that people can consume easily on, the 50 plus devices that are probably most commonly used in your marketplace, then you're doing a user a disservice. The other thing that we've found is while in a lot of developed markets, Android and iPhone are very similar in terms of the number of devices out there. iOS and Apple is where a lot of people are purchasing. So if you really have to focus on one thing, all our evidence says that across a few different verticals and businesses, focus on the Apple user because they're the ones that are going to pay the bills.
That's probably a good assumption.
Well, if you spend $1,000 on a phone, then you've got something, don't you?
Right. And if you go and get the cheap Android phone, well, you're probably not going to spend much money on stuff.
Yeah, and Apple also gives you a pretty consistent, platform, whereas Android, when you start to develop for it, or if you're trying to be cute and focus on certain devices, it's still pretty fragmented. So if you have to focus on one thing with mobile, make sure it's responsive and make sure the Apple user is well looked after.
Okay. Another thing too, which is probably worth pointing out, is congruence from kind of the start to the end of the process. So when they, from the subject line, whatever it says, it has to relate to the content of the email, and whatever the content of the email says has to relate to the content of the page that you link them to. Some emails, I've seen the sites do this, they write all about something very specific in the email, and then they link you to the homepage and leave you to figure out where the hell to go to find whatever they were talking about in the email. By that point, you just close the tab and you're off.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're pretty lucky on e-commerce sites. You got